You are listening to Any Given Sunday, a part of the Dead End Podcast Network. Please subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and all other podcasting services. Please make sure you check out Dead End Hip Hop, Dead End Sports, Dead End Gaming, Is the Mic Still On, Chris Platt's Strictly Hip Hop and Hoops Talk, and a host of other shows on our podcast network. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. For Monday, March 18th, 2019, this is Any Given Sunday. I'm your host, Manny Brown. What's up, everybody? Hopefully you guys had a happy, safe, blessed week. Sorry there was no show yesterday. I had a little bit of house issues, bad plumbing that I've been dealing with all weekend. So my wife and I were playing plumber at the house. So yeah, I couldn't do a podcast when we have bad plumbing at the crib. So so had to reschedule some things, but I'm glad to be back with another episode of the podcast today. My guest today is a local guest, first local guest in the history of the podcast, I'm proud to say. Andrew Hammond, he is a sports columnist for the Tacoma News Tribune. He's joining me today to cover the aftermath of Selection Sunday and break down these brackets together and give me his insight. He's been a guy who's been covering sports for a while and just new to the area, read some of his articles, became a fan, so I figured I'd have him on the show and check him out, give him a chance to be on Any Given Sunday. So Andrew, my name is Manny. Welcome to Any Given Sunday. What's up, man?
I am happy to be on here, Manny. I appreciate you having me on, and for March Madness, and you're going to have me on, it's not going to end well. I'm going to ruin so many brackets. I'm going to ruin so many people's chances to win bracket pools. Like, I'm sorry in advance, guys. I'm sorry.
Well, listen, this is an inexact science. I mean, look, I think I have a theory that the people that actually win these tournament pools are like old ladies in New Mexico somewhere that play. Absolutely. It's like the lottery. It's like they just play out of like pure happenstance and they just happen to win. Like, because none of the people that actually watch college basketball on a regular or even semi-regular basis get any of these picks right.
Right. It is, to me, it is like, I don't know if you're a NASCAR guy or not, but when you have that big wreck at one of those big racetracks and there's 16 to 20 cars all wrecked and beat up, this is what the NCAA tournament is like, because you don't know where it's going to come from, and anything that makes sense, you kind of just leave at the door starting on Selection Sunday, because there's a team that doesn't have the right region, and a team that you aren't even thinking of, they end up making a run to a regional final, and all of a sudden you're just like, I know nothing about college basketball, but I guess that's why they play the games.
I know, right? And that's what makes it appealing. I think that's what makes it. I honestly believe that I think outside of the Super Bowl and maybe the World Series in some parts, this is probably the biggest sporting event in the country. Second biggest sporting event, second or third biggest, depending on your fandom, of course. Some people will argue NBA Finals. Of course, if you're a hockey fan, you'll argue, Stanley Cup or whatever. But I think from a just drawing a wide audience, I think this might be second only to the Super Bowl, probably the second biggest sporting event of the year. I mean, it's just it really kind of gravitates to everybody, and my wife is at work. She's not a college basketball fan at all, and she's asking me about my picks and her bracket. So that so that should tell you everything that you need to know about March Madness and its appeal.
My mom emailed me her picks because she's in a bracket pool at work, and it's the first time she's ever done one, and I was kind of hoping I was adopted by some of the picks that she made. But, hey, it's my mom. I love her. So I was like, okay, you did okay, Mom. But, if she wins, then I can't really say anything. And
the sad part is she'll probably get more picks right than you. So,
I've kind of resigned to that fact.
Yeah. Well, before we start, man, I always like to give my guests a little bit of time before the at the beginning of the show to kind of, introduce themselves to the audience. Just kind of give a brief bio of themselves, who they are, how they got their start, just to kind of introduce themselves to the audience, like I said. And, because there are people that probably never heard of you or never followed your work. So just take this time to kind of introduce yourself. Who is Andrew Hammond?
Okay. Well, I am Andrew Hammond. I am a journalist of 15 years, born and raised in Wichita, Kansas. Spent some time at both KU and K-State. I've done some radio, TV, and newspaper work, and I recently moved out here to the Pacific Northwest in wonderful and beautiful Tacoma, Washington. Did that in October of last year, and It's my first time being on the West Coast, so it's fun. It's definitely a different experience, but I'm down for it. And of course, I'm over at the Tacoma News Tribune, where I am a writer and a columnist, and I love telling fantastic sports stories. And hopefully, I can be out in the city a little more often, and the weather is starting to get a little bit better. So I'm definitely down for just pretty much anything in and around Tacoma.
Awesome. We were talking offline. I think you came here. It's weird because, we were talking offline about how the weather here, I mean, everybody knows it rains a lot here, but, since global warming is actually a thing, it's not a hoax.
Yes.
The weather is changing everywhere, it seems like. I mean, if you got hurricanes in the Northeast, I mean, of course here, obviously, naturally, you're going to have snowstorms. And like the way we live, it's weird because, we're a state that's separated by a mountain and half of it is desert, half of it is a rainforest. I know it's weird. I'm not going to get into I've gotten into geography on this show many times, so I'm not going to do that now, but just to kind of give you guys a brief kind of recap. It rains a lot here, and it hasn't rained as much, but it's been snowing a lot here lately. So, Andrew just happened to get lucky here because he was warned that it rains a lot in Washington State, and he just so happened to come in a time where, it's probably the most snow we've ever had here in Washington State. So I don't know if he brought it with him from Kansas or something. I don't know.
I did not bring it with me from Kansas because that's maybe the most snow I've seen, I want to say, in about 5 years.
Wow.
Because what was that? It was that Friday where we had that big snowstorm.
Yeah.
And I'm literally looking outside, and I'm like, okay, it's starting to snow. I've seen snow on the ground before. I'm sure everybody's seen snow at one point in their life. But it felt like maybe 5-10 minutes later, the News Tribune building, it's separated by, you have the sales staff and you have the newsroom staff. Well, the sales staff, they all booked it. They were like, you know what? A little snow on the ground, I'm good. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to go home, do whatever. But on my way home, I was like, I'm that person that's like, oh, I need to stop by the store and pick up a few things, mainly bourbon. But so I stopped by the store, and I mean, every line is like 10 people deep, and I'm just, I'm trying to figure out just what is going on with the stupid weather, and why is everybody here? Everybody needs to go home. Let me get in line first. But it was actually kind of cool. Like it was actually kind of picturesque because I have a lot of trees around my place. So the weather has been cooperating most days. But I'm excited to be in the area.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you, man, and welcome to the area. It's fun. I'm always doing guests that are on the East Coast or in Cali or wherever, and it's fun to have somebody local, man, that I can talk about my. I'm weirdly a weather fan, so some of my friends think it's weird that I'm so into the weather, but so it's finally good to have somebody that can share my pain when it comes to the weather.
Have you seen tornadoes?
No, I have not seen tornadoes, and I don't plan on it. No.
That's the inner Kansan in me, where it's when you're little, you see a tornado and you're like, oh no, it's a tornado, it's scary. By the time you're 7, 8 years old, even after that, you're like, oh, okay, so you kind of know what the danger line is. And so if you're from the Midwest, you're from, the area we call Tornado Alley, you're looking around, you're like, oh, okay, so it's not going to be that bad. Let's watch. So you're just watching a storm system move across. It's weird. Midwesterners have this weird vibe about us. We've just kind of embraced it at this point.
With all due respect, man, I'll leave the tornadoes to you, my friend. I'm good.
That works.
I'm good on that one, man. I'm good. Two things I don't think I can handle is earthquakes and tornadoes. I'm good. I pass. I've lived through hurricanes. I've gone through blizzards, of course. Yeah, tornadoes. Yeah. Let's just hope the weather doesn't get too crazy where we start getting tornadoes up here.
Yeah, then you can blame me.
Okay, then I'll hold you to that then. All right, man. Well, let's get into it. Anything to surprise you from Selection Sunday? Things kind of go as expected. Teams that were on the bubble that you expected not to make it, made it, or teams that you thought were going to make it, didn't make it, or, vice versa, whatever. Anything really surprise you or shock you from the selection show last night?
honestly, nothing really surprised me as far as teams that got in or didn't get in. I personally, when I the night before Selection Sunday, I'll create one mock bracket where I'll put teams I think who are in, who are not in. I didn't have Belmont in. I thought they deserved to be in, but when you're in a one bid league, it's hard to really it's hard to really get that second leg in. So good for them, they got in. The one question I did have, honestly, was Michigan State. Because they ranked the teams 1 through 68, and Michigan State came in 5th. Well, if they came in 5th, usually you don't put them with the top 1 seed.
Right.
Well, they're in Duke's region, and Michigan State, played excellent ball as of late. So that kind of confused me. I didn't know if they'd switch, because some of the bracketing rules that they kind of just threw out the window or was out of their control, I was confused by. But as far as the 68 teams, it was fine. Personally, I think they could have gone to maybe 64 this year because I think the bubble kind of sucked.
Yeah.
There's teams that didn't deserve to get in, and they're in, like Arizona State. Wasn't impressed, didn't have a good closing argument. But when you have those quote-unquote quad 1 wins, they beat Kansas, beat Utah State. So they did I won't say the bare minimum, but they did what was required of them throughout the entire season. And that's what the committee looks at. They look at your entire body of work. So all in all, I think the committee did a good job with the tools they were given. But I still think there's a few things that could have gone either way. But here's the thing about the tournament. We have 2 or 3 days to talk about this, and then anything that we think works doesn't once the ball's tipped.
Right, absolutely. So Thursday at noon, everything goes out the window. So this show will basically, so just to warn you guys, we're just doing a show just to do a show, because of course by Thursday this will all be null and void, of course.
Well, unless we're right.
Oh yeah, of course. What are the chances of that? I mean, hey, I think I'm a very smart guy, but I don't foresee that being right.
I have faith in you.
Well, I'm glad somebody does. No, I agree with you, man. I think for the most part, the committee got it right. You can always find little tidbits to quibble about here and there. But for the most part, I think this is one of the first years in a long time that I would say that I think the national consensus is that they got most of the teams right. I think more people have a problem with the seedings of certain teams than I think that who got in. I could probably quibble about some teams that got in over some teams that didn't. A lot of people are saying, okay, how did St. John's get in? And, they finished the season terribly. So how did they make it? Oklahoma is another team that I saw, and I'm like, what has Oklahoma really done that's been that impressive over a team like it? Yeah, especially over a team in their own conference that I think had a better resume than in TCU, and even Indiana. I know Indiana lost 15 games, but even Indiana has some argument to make. I'm like, if you look at Indiana's body of work compared to Oklahoma, I mean, Indiana to me has a much better argument than Oklahoma. So I mean, but then you're gonna have that every year. I mean, you're never gonna have a perfect selection in this tournament. I mean, you're picking from hundreds of teams, and you're whittling down to 68. So it's always somebody's always gonna find something to nitpick on. But I think if you were assigning a letter grade to this tournament or this selection, to the Selection Sunday, I think you would have to give it a solid B+. Yeah,
it's a solid B. They could have done better, but it's rare that getting 68 teams in is fine. But seeding them correctly and perfectly and making sure everything works well within the rules that they're given within the bracket. Because I feel like that's one thing that they've restricted their rules so much that they kind of put themselves into a box and putting, slotting teams where they should be. But, I would say a solid B. I fully agree.
Let me get your take on this. You said that they put themselves in a box. One of the biggest issues that I've had with this, selection committee over the years is that it never feels like they have a consistent, kind of marker on where they're going by. Some years they weigh the conferences and the strength of the conferences overall. overall as opposed to kind of non-conference. Other years, especially recently, they've weighed non-conference over conference. Some years they value the conference tournaments, so it just kind of feels like every year it feels like what their criteria is kind of changes. This year, just from watching, listening to all the shows and listening to the tournament chair, they weighed kind of overall body of work. Do you have a problem with that when it kind of changes from year in to year out? I know these things are cyclical and, one year a conference is stronger than the other, but, do you kind of have a problem with that from year to year? It just never feels like there's a consistent kind of criteria in which they're grading these teams and evaluating these teams?
The one thing that bothers me with the selection committee year in and year out is involve the eye test. Because you can talk about, well, this team had, a certain amount of quad one wins or, their record against ranked teams. Just involve the eye test for once. Because I feel like sometimes the committee, they're too much into the numbers and not you got two eyes. Like, I look at Indiana, fantastic job against Michigan State. You get 2 wins against Michigan State, fine. But when I've seen them at other points this year, they've been bad.
Right.
Like, they have not been good at all. I mean, and you brought up Oklahoma. Oklahoma, to me, they had to beat West Virginia. You beat West Virginia, you take care of business, and then your seeding and your bracketing and where you're at in the tournament takes care of itself. They got beat. They were not in that game. They weren't playing like a team that needed to solidify a tournament spot. To me, the 20 win. Once you get 20 wins, you were instantly in the conversation on Selection Sunday. Like, no matter what you do, you were in the conversation. And to me, it seemed like Oklahoma that needed to get some type of, they need to prove, okay, we are worthy of being in the tournament. They didn't do that. And the fact that they were a 9, that surprised me, because that says, okay, they had taken care of business, and no matter what they would have done, they're still in. So, to me, they got to involve the eye test and just say, hey, this team sucked.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's too much into the numbers. I mean, I can understand for the smaller schools because I get it. I mean, how many of these, selection guys you think are watching Belmont basketball on a game in, a game out basis? I mean, I get it. I understand it. I mean, how many of them are watching UC Irvine on a game to game? And I'm a big college basketball fan, but I admit I don't watch a lot of these teams. I mean, of course I follow, Murray State because of John Moran, of course. And, you kind of pay attention to them a little bit more, but, the UC Irvines, the Belmonts, the mid Tennessee states, name a mid major. You're not following them on a week to week, game to game basis. So I get it. Maybe with them, you have to, maybe look at, analytics and numbers a little bit better. But for the big time teams, the eye test definitely, is a good barometer to grade these teams on. Where do you stand on Are you an advocate for having kind of the little guy get a chance in the tournament more so than kind of the 7th team in the Big East or the 7th team in the ACC, that middling team, the Clemsons, the NC States of the world? Or are you into, because there's definitely a debate within the kind of the college basketball community. Some people kind of feel like, just take the 68 best teams or, take a combination of the big Power 5 conference teams. And then of course, your best mid majors. Where do you kind of fall on that argument?
Well, it's funny because I heard Dick Vitale talking about this yesterday, and it was the first time because he was talking about, trying to get the UNC Greensboros of the world, some of these other schools, and I get his point. But if we're going to take the 68 best teams, then we got to do an unpopular thing to me, is you got to take the auto bids away.
I agree with that.
And see, I got absolutely killed on this last week on Twitter because I don't have a problem with putting in teams from lower conferences. I have no problem at all. But my issue is we're sending and we're consistently sending teams from the SWAC, from the MEAC, from the Patriot League, from the Northeastern Conference. We're essentially sending them to the slaughter every single time. And for 4 of these conferences, yeah, you get an auto bid. Congratulations. Guess what? You get to go to Dayton.
Right.
Like, there's no... Like, to me, the first 4 and the whole, when they included the play-in game, I was like, okay, this is fine. But to me, the play-in game should be for teams that need to actually earn their way in. So instead of, Prairie View and Fairleigh Dickinson, give me Texas and TCU.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely.
Like it should, and play them at the actual sites. Like, I understand Dayton, the entire city comes out for it. It creates great revenue. I understand that. But give these kids some type of actual, let them play on the actual site. And I've been a big stickler for that, and I get that, you want to keep up with tradition, and Dayton is a popular site, and it's been a popular site for years, even before the playing game, but...
Right, great basketball tradition in Dayton.
Right. And so, the one issue for me is, if you won your conference tournament, you deserve a spot in. You were in the field. You don't have to go to Dayton. You don't have to play a playing game. And to me, that would make the tournament more interesting because it gives incentive. Okay, I win my conference. I know I'm in the field. I don't have to wonder and think, am I going to have to play in the playing game? Because, let's be real. The playing game for the 16 seeds is, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Spartacus, but there's a scene. Okay, so about it's like in the early part of the movie, you've got Spartacus, you got 4 guys, and they're essentially fighting for the entertainment of this small group of people.
Right.
And that's what the 16 game is. It's like, congratulations, guess what? You get Duke.
Yeah.
Yay! Student athlete experience. Yay! So I hate the current structure of the tournament, but I would definitely, if you aren't going to help those teams out now, then just get rid of the auto bid, because it's not doing any conference any justice. And for those who'll say, oh, well, what about the Cinderella story? They call it a Cinderella story because you can't predict that it'll actually happen.
Right.
Nobody's sitting there going, oh man, that 15 seed really had a chance.
Yeah,
they had a chance, but did you give them a chance coming into the game? Probably not.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, nobody last year predicted that Loyola Marymount Loyola of Chicago would do what they did, or UMBC, of course. Yeah, exactly. UMBC, that's why they're Cinderellas, because it's so unexpected. It's a fairy tale. You don't believe it until it's actually, comes true. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things. No, I'm with you. I haven't gone to the extremes of getting rid of the automatic bids, but, now that you mentioned it, you made a great point about it. Yeah, I could definitely agree with you. The thing that always annoys me, and I hate the playing games. I think that it's just a cash grab to me, and I hate things that are done just for a cash grab. And I just kind of felt like it was pointless. And I agree with you that if you're going to do the playing games, do them right. Make it the bottom of the barrel teams. Like, to me, even Temple. I feel like Temple should be playing in the playing game. To me, Temple's more deserving than in Oklahoma. It should be Oklahoma and name a team, or it should be this team.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're going to
Arizona State would be
Exactly. That is the perfect playing game. Oklahoma versus Arizona State, two teams that if you're really being honest, have no business being in this tournament. And the other thing that gets me annoyed is that when you can't even go 500 in your own conference. That just annoys me. I feel like at the very least you should be 500 in your conference. If you're not 500 in your conference, then you have no business going into the tournament. And I have this argument every year because there's people that believe, do you really want to see Oklahoma, or you want to see, Tacoma Community College or whatever, name a mid-major. And I'm like, I'd rather see the mid-major than seeing the ninth best team in the Big Ten. Like, we've seen that team for 31 games. They had 31 games to show that they had some deserving, resume to get into the tournament. And they were
good. If they proved their point, and they're like, okay, yeah, you had some bad. I wasn't trying to interrupt you, but yeah.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, it's like to me, if you had 31 games to prove it, like a team like Northwestern, they beat Michigan State twice, but you struggle with Northwestern. You get beat badly by Iowa. I mean, it's those games that really separate you on Selection Sunday. But yeah, no, if your conference is really a bear, and we're looking at Oklahoma, and they're under 500 in conference. Big 12 wasn't really that great this year.
No, it had a down year this year. Yeah.
4 or 5 teams, yet we're sliding in Oklahoma. Not really sure. Not picking up on the logic from the league there.
And no one's and the thing that gets me annoyed is everybody's like, everybody loves a Cinderella until they're in the regional 8 and they're getting stomped. But the argument isn't, UMBC over Duke or UMBC over Kansas. It's the argument of UMBC over Clemson. Can anybody legitimately make an argument that UNC Greensboro and Oklahoma in a neutral site isn't at the very least a close game? Like, we don't know that. For all we know, Oklahoma could smash them. But for all we know, UMBC or UNC Greensboro is in the game. It's not like we're making this argument UNC Greensboro deserves over North Carolina. Of course not. We know that they're not on the upper echelon of teams. But, this idea that, Clemson deserves it over UNC Greensboro or Limpsicum or whatever. Like, I don't know. It just falls apart for me. I get into this argument every year with people that want to see the 68 best teams, but what representation of, how can we really determine the 68 best teams if you're taking like the 9th team from the ACC?
Right.
So what was the biggest, what was the most egregious thing from yesterday? Like the seedings, what was the one thing that's just kind of has just annoyed you the most in the 24 hours since?
Honestly, I really don't know. Because I think, the fact that the committee they did a solid job because you got to get 68 teams. You got to seed them correctly. You got to do all of that, like I was saying earlier. So there's really, because I'm looking at the bracket right now, and there's really not anything that's egregious or that I'm just like, how could they do
Well,
that?
you mentioned it earlier, the Michigan thing. I think a lot of people, I've been watching, I was watching the shows, I was listening to Mad Dog Sports Radio yesterday as well. And a lot of people were pointing out to that was the most egregious thing, the Michigan State being slaughtered. I don't know if I'm that hardcore on that one. I can.
The 2 line was pretty much, we all kind of knew the 2 line at that point after Duke beat Carolina and
I'm not that hardcore over it because I know that Michigan State has an argument. We swept Michigan. We beat them just a few hours ago. So how exactly are we the lowest ranked 2 seed as opposed to Michigan? You know what I mean? Or seeded with the highest ranking 1 seed while Michigan gets to play Gonzaga, theoretically the weakest one. I don't buy that argument necessarily because to me, does anybody believe? I've watched Michigan and Michigan State play all year. I watched all 3 games, close games throughout. Is there that much of a difference between Michigan State and Michigan? I'm sure people will make an argument that Michigan State's probably a little bit better than Michigan, but how do we know? How do we know if we flip-flop them, the results aren't the same or different? I mean, how do we make that argument one way or another? So I can't really, quibble about that too much. Some people are mad about Kansas. If Kansas wins 2 games, they basically get, the Sweet 16 in the regional, final, 61 miles away. Yeah, I can see that because Kansas doesn't deserve that. Kansas.
Well, yeah, I can see if KU if KU had the record that they did, 25-9, and they either won the Big 12 Conference regular season or championship or tournament championship, fine, I get it. But they didn't do anything to earn it. But people want to talk about, well, look at their quad one wins. Okay.
Yeah. Very unimpressed.
Yeah, but I also saw this team get absolutely slapped around multiple times this season. And so, to me, that's maybe the one thing that I would have put, you either put Texas Tech or K-State there. And I don't think anybody would have been upset about it. But KU is Kansas City's primarily a KU market, so I get why you're doing that. But at the same time, you're also bringing in potentially North Carolina and Kentucky. Mm-hmm. Those fan bases travel,
right?
And I've seen the North Carolina fan base travel when they played at Sprint Center in Kansas City. I want to say 2015. So it's not like it's not like, oh, well, we need KU there, or it's going to be half empty.
Right. No, I get it. Yeah,
you're still going to fill some butts and some seats. I feel bad for Texas Tech. You finish. I want to say they finished second last year in the Big 12. Mm-hmm. Well, guess where they go? They got to go to Boston.
Yeah.
This year, co-champions in the conference. Now they got to go to Anaheim. Not really seeing what they're doing there.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem I had, man, is the seedings. I mean, Villanova, a 6 and Marquette a 5. That's the biggest. That was one of the glaring ones to me. I just was like, well, how did they, Villanova wins the regular season title and the conference title, and yet Marquette is ranked higher. How does that work? Now I know Marquette's, had some quad one wins, the big quad wins or whatever, but I still think that you got to reward winning a conference and winning. And this is, and I'm not that high on Villanova this year anyway. I think most people feel like this is kind of a lesser Villanova team, but still have, if nothing else, give a little respect to Villanova. I mean, they did win their conference title, championship postseason and regular season. So, that annoyed me. I could also make it stink that Florida State is underseeded. Buffalo's underseeded. I just didn't understand the seedings. I really, really didn't. K-State a 4. I could argue that one too.
I think there was just a log jam. I think every year, and it's kind of like, and I'm not even a NASCAR fan, but there's a lot of good NASCAR correlations when it comes to the seeding in the brackets. Because we know the one line. The 2 line kind of, was figured out Saturday night, but Sunday, you're still trying to figure out the 3, you're still trying to figure out the 4, and it's such a log jam, and there's so many teams that have like resumes that, if you put Team X at a 3 and Team X at a 4, and then you reveal them, and then you're like, oh, do they really deserve that? Or so it's, and honestly, like 4 seeds to me this year, seeds 3 through 5, you could have switched the numbers around, and I would have been like, oh, okay, well, yeah, they are a 4 seed. Like it was that kind of year, and that's why, and we'll probably talk about go deeper into the bracket with picks and everything, and so I feel like it's going to be a lot of chalk this year because of the fact that the seeding was so, they kind of just threw teams in.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Yeah.
Oh, you belong in the 3 and 4 section, so we're just going to throw you up there and see which one sticks.
Yeah, this is the one year where it literally felt, I mean, you could make that argument every year, but it just felt like they were just throwing teams in there because that's what they thought they were. I mean, it just didn't make sense. That's the one thing that annoyed me this year, is just the way they seeded some teams. I kind of felt like, really? And I could even make a case now, full disclosure, I am a Duke fan, so I hate all things Carolina.
Same. Same.
So I can make an argument that North Carolina won really over Tennessee. I mean, I could legitimately make an argument that if I'm Tennessee, even Michigan State has more of a claim for a 1 seed than North Carolina, in my opinion. So, and again, I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible here. I know it's hard being a Dookie, but it's still, I mean, can you really make a case that North Carolina deserved the 1 seed body of work over Tennessee?
It's like there's some days where it's like, oh, maybe, and then it's like, I don't know, but yeah, no, it's as soon to me, I feel like, as the SEC kind of knocked each other off. That where, say, and apparently the way that the committee is talking, it really didn't matter if Tennessee won the SEC tournament or not.
Yeah, that's what they were saying. Yeah, but and look, if you wanted to penalize them, because I thought that was a terrible performance on Sunday. After you win that emotional game on Saturday against Kentucky, and then you fall flat against Auburn, that would worry me if I'm a Tennessee fan, by the way. But no, just because I mean, it's like you win a game like that.
It was so emotional of a game, and honestly, that was the worry I had about Duke.
Yeah, you're right. I did have that worry that they were going to have such a letdown against, but usually Duke, when they win those type of games, I feel like they usually do a good job of responding. And I expected Tennessee to do that. Now, Auburn's a pretty good team, so there's no shame in losing to Auburn. Just the way that they did. I mean, I guess if they would have lost a close game, I don't think anybody would have minded so much, but I think the way that they lost, where they just really got dominated from the opening tip, it just kind of felt like Michigan just kind of felt like Tennessee was just not there at all that day. So I think if you want to say, okay, Tennessee deserves, just on that performance alone, you want to say Tennessee deserves a 2 seed. Okay. But what about Michigan State? Michigan State to me has a gripe, not only being seeded where they were seeded eventually, but not getting a 1 seed.
Michigan State's weird, man.
They are a weird team. You're right. They are a weird team.
Like Michigan State is weird. Like, even I don't think Michigan deserved a 1, but Michigan State, I don't think I would have put him at a 1, but I would have switched around Michigan and Michigan State.
Yeah,
I would have said Michigan to the end. It's funny when I came out with my seedings and projections, I actually had Michigan in the East as a 2, so I was like, okay. Like, no matter what happens, we know Michigan has had the edge, or Michigan State has had the edge, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, they won a 3rd straight game. Came back from double digits for the 3rd straight time. So I'm like, oh, and you put Michigan State in, which, let's be real, that region, and we'll probably go into it a little later, that region kind of sort of sucks.
It does. Although some teams do worry me from a Duke perspective.
No, I understand, but yeah, it's like they should like Michigan State should reach a regional final. Maybe they'll get tested by a certain team, but for the most part, they actually landed, like, their path to a regional final is actually good, but it's just where they start.
Right.
It gives you pause.
Yeah, I agree. And Michigan State's a weird team because you watch them all year long, and they just had some moments where they were just. And I know they had a lot of injuries, and I get it. I completely get it. Being a Duke fan, I know what the injuries do to you. But it's weird because every time I watch Michigan State, I'm just like. The times that I watched them this year, I was like, man, they either looked really good or they looked really, really average. And so sometimes it's kind of hard to, cause, who knows, if I was a person in the selection committee, I'm like, well, what is Michigan State really? I mean, the times that I've seen them, they either looked really good or really bad. So sometimes that sways arguments too, but obviously you have to look at the full body and all that. But yeah, no, I'm mostly with you, man, on everything that you're saying. In your opinion, how many teams have a legitimate opportunity to win a national championship this year?
Honestly, I would say I'd say around January I kind of handicap, okay, this is what the number is, and I want to say I had it at about 12 teams who had a legit path. It sounds kind of weird saying because I feel like everybody kind of has the same Final Four or a combination of the same 8 teams. So, but I'd say about 10 teams have a legit path.
Really, 10? Wow, that's a lot more. That's a lot more than I expected you to say.
Right. Well, and the thing is, it's like because the bracket for some teams, the bracket has to break their way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for about 2 of those teams, I'm just looking at the bracket right now. For about 2 of those teams, they need a loss by somebody within the first weekend. And then when they go into the second weekend, then all of a sudden they're the favorite. So I would say about 8 solid picks should have a chance, but I'd also add in, 2 more with the advent of, having the bracket break their way. And thing is, it happens every year.
Right. No, I get it, yeah.
Team, there's, once again, it's all about avoiding the wrecks. If you can avoid the carnage around you and you're still on that track, then yeah, you definitely got a shot. So I'd say about 8, the floor is 8 and the ceiling is about 10.
Wow, that's actually more than I expected you to say. Yeah, I would say about 6. Legitimately, obviously, this isn't counting, a team getting hot, or Cinderella just coming out of nowhere. I'm just counting the teams that I've watched all year. I would say 6. I would say, obviously Duke, obviously the 4 ones, Tennessee, probably Michigan State. Those would be my 6. I'll be kind and maybe throw in a Kentucky, maybe, although I'm not that impressed with that Kentucky team. I think they're a little overrated, in my opinion. That's about it. I get what you're saying that, the bracket breaks right for somebody and, we see it every year. So, but obviously we just don't know who that team might be.
Right.
So it's hard to kind of navigate that. But if you're just asking me right now, place a bet how many teams that can win a national championship, I'll go with 6.
Okay, that's fair.
Before we kind of get into the brackets, what's a team, I kind of gave you a team that I think is a little overrated, but what's a team that you're just not feeling? Like, you see the hype, you see the love, and you're just like, really? What am I missing? What's that team for you? What is that team that you just...
It's weird because if you followed me on Twitter long enough, and I essentially had a man crush on the Michigan basketball team. And I'm a lifelong Duke fan, but when you watch good basketball and you watch good, clean, fundamental basketball, and I hate saying it's like, fundamentals. No. Michigan, when they run their sets, they're things of beauty because they have bigs who can stretch the floor, but they can also drive to the basket. You have guards and you have guys that can go out and shoot. Well, the last few weeks, that love affair has kind of faded, and they aren't as deep as they were in the past few years. So, where they are slotted at, I don't like it. I think they get past Montana, but I think they do make the Sweet 16. But you have to run into Nevada, which a team that has fallen off the cliff in the last month, or you got to see a Florida team that's kind of starting to get a little mojo. So, as much as I love Michigan, I want to stay away from them. Oh, and if Michigan gets past, the first weekend, then you have to run into a Texas Tech team that does everything that you do, but they're more athletic. I would say 3 out of the 5 positions you have on the floor.
Interesting. The one thing that wouldn't concern me about Michigan is they got a hell of a coach. Beeline is just, he's just an awesome coach, and he knows his way around an NCAA tournament. So that's the one thing. He's the one X factor that I think he can get them through. I'm with you. I haven't been that impressed this year with Michigan, as I've been the last couple of years. The one thing about them is that, and the one thing I've always loved about them is that they can kind of play any game that you want to play. You want to play a rough and tumble, muck it up, 47, 44 type of game. They can play that game. And then of course you want to play an up tempo, shoot a lot of threes, spacing. They can play that game. And this year they've just kind of, I don't know if they just had, I haven't watched a lot of Michigan, outside of, playing, the usual suspects, Michigan State, Indiana, teams like that. I haven't watched a lot of their teams. I haven't been that impressed with them this year. I think the biggest thing with them is they don't really have a great offensive play. They don't have that great player. Even in years past, they've always had that one or two guys that can take over games. They don't have that guy this year. And I think that would concern me if I'm a Michigan fan, but I still think they're okay. Cause that's how much belief I have in Beeline.
Right. And one thing that, I look at Michigan, real quick is you were talking about that offensive threat. Sometimes, if Livers and number two, the sophomore they got, basically both have the same hair. But,
I know what you're talking about. I forget the name. Yeah.
Yeah. If they're two and their three can't get going, then ball game.
Right.
Like it really is, because they struggle so much if those guys aren't hitting shots. And really, if you look at the game yesterday against Michigan State, I mean, just absolutely flat and struggling. So I would say, Michigan is a team that I'm just not feeling. Honestly, I don't want to say anybody's really overrated in these in these brackets. I feel like there's some teams that, I think we kind of know who they are. Like a team like Kansas. Do they deserve a 4 seed? Maybe. I honestly had them as, when I did my true seed rankings, how I do it is I'll classify, I'll get my 4 1s, 4 2s, all that. Well, I actually had 4 5 seeds, or 5 4 seeds, I should say, because the 5 seed line and the 4 seed line, there's definitely a differential, and I put KU there because KU just hadn't impressed me at all. But the thing is, we know that this team isn't good. So I would expect Auburn to, if Auburn plays like they've played all season, especially yesterday, it's not going to be pretty, and Auburn's going to move on. So I would argue KU, but I think we kind of know who they are, and they've kind of shown us who they are this season.
The one team I gave you Kentucky. The other team that I would say I wouldn't say they're overrated. I think their teams are expecting a little bit too much from them is maybe Texas Tech. That's the team for me that I'm just not there with them yet. Just cause I don't, just cause I don't love them I don't love them offensively. To me, I get a Florida State vibe. They run up against a big time offensive team. I don't know if they can score enough points. That's the one thing I love Chris Beard. I think he's a very good coach. I love the way they play from a defensive side they have athletes. They play well defensively. Offensively sometimes they're a little challenged, so
I can't wait to get to these bracket picks. This is
it's going to be good. Yeah. I'm not there. A lot of people love Texas Tech, and I'm just like, I'm not there with them yet. I'm not seeing what everybody else is seeing. And again, I love Chris Beard as a coach, and I think he's done a really good job there. And I like the way they play. I don't know. I think they're one of those teams that I think if they run up against a big time team, a big time offensive team, I just don't know if they can score enough points. So that's the one thing that will worry me about Texas Tech. But Kentucky, I just don't think they're that great. I mean, I think everybody's ranking them because they're Kentucky. I love PJ Washington. I think Hero's good, but the rest of that team, I don't love that team. And
right. That's the one thing that scares me. I don't know about you, but that's the one thing that scares me. If they get into foul trouble, Yeah, it could be a long day.
Yeah. And Calipari, let's be honest, he's we all know he's a great recruiter and all that, but he's sometimes in these games, his coaching, especially late in these games, sometimes leaves a lot to be desired. So, Kentucky, I'm just not there with Kentucky this year. On the other end of things, who's that team that you don't think is getting a lot of love? I'm sure you'll probably say Texas Tech then, going by what I said. Who do you think is a team that's just not getting a lot of love that you think is really dangerous? It could be a Cinderella. It could be, one of those 5, 6, 7 seeds.
Honestly, because I do have Texas Tech on the list, but I'll give you another name that could be, and for those who are listening, I'll give you 2 names. Villanova.
Okay.
I think where they're slotted at in their region, they could be dangerous.
2 seniors, teams that's won 2 championships. Great coach.
Guys that have been there. Yeah, great coach. But I'm going to go Houston. Houston is a team that you got to have good guard play, excellent guard play, guys that can score the basketball, and if you can play defense, and you watch Houston play defense throughout the season, one of the best defensive teams in the country, hell of a coach in Kelvin Sampson. Like, this team, even though they're a 3 seed, even though they're a top 4 seed, that's a team that, if they can navigate their way, if they can get to a regional final, and they're playing against a North Carolina, an Auburn, or a KU, that's a toss-up, because these kids can play.
Yeah, I've only seen him a couple times. I haven't seen him a lot, but the times that I've seen him, I liked him. I saw him against the UCF in that game they lost, when they had that ridiculous streak going. And I was impressed with them. So yeah, I can see Houston. I'll give you that one. The team for me that I don't understand why they're not getting more love is K-State. I love K-State.
I went to K-State, so I get it.
Yeah, I love their head coach. He knows his way around the NCAA tournament. He's been there a long time. He's been to a regional final with that team, and he got to a championship game. So I love the head coach, and I just love that team. Brown, Sneed. If Dean Wade is healthy, he's the ultimate X factor. I just like that team. That team is tough. They're physical, and they also can play a lot of different ways. They can kind of play an up-tempo game if you want to, and they can also slow the game down and muck it up a little bit. So I like that team. I think they gained a lot of experience from getting to an elite, to a regional final last year. I really like K-State, and I'm surprised that a lot of people are not giving them more attention than they're getting.
Yeah, and I think it's really because of the Dean Wade injury, and they've been very mum on it.
Yeah, if he's healthy, yeah, he's the big X factor. He's got to be healthy, yeah.
And my issue, honestly, is if he's not healthy, there's not much depth at that spot. I mean, there's depth, but it's not, we can just put a guy in there and we're going to be okay. No, it shoulders the load on the guards a little bit, and so, like, I've got them losing that first round game, but if he's healthy and the bracket hasn't locked, then yeah, things may change. But yeah, I'm just kind of. I'm a little. I got a little trepidation right now with that K-State pick.
No, understood. I mean, they've been so mum, so it's hard to say like he's going to be either out or so it's hard to kind of make one determination one way or another. But I all this falls apart if he's just not ready to go, because I think he makes that team. He takes that team to a whole nother level. Even though they did get to a regional final last year without him, but I don't think they have as much depth as they do last year. But I think if he's healthy or even if he's 75%, I really like that team a lot. If I had to give you another team, I would say another team that's not getting a lot of credit. I say Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin is one of those teams. They're just kind of like Villanova. Just like Villanova, they know their way around the NCAA tournament. They've got a good coach. Ethan Happ is a big time player. He's a guy that can take over a game. I know they're not as deep as they've been in the last couple years. But I still like Wisconsin. I still think that they can be a dangerous team. I don't know if they're dangerous enough to maybe get to a Final Four or even an Elite Eight, but I think Wisconsin can make some noise. I know you don't agree with me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll say this. The one double-digit, or the two double-digit seeds, that both Wisconsin and K-State did not want to see are actually the teams that they got to play. I think Oregon's a terrible matchup for Wisconsin. I got Wisconsin winning that game, but it's a terrible matchup in the sense that Oregon is playing with momentum. They've definitely done a good job of getting to the bucket. They're playing excellent team defense.
Pritchard is a guy that can take over an NCAA tournament.
Yes. The one thing that concerns me about Wisconsin, and kind of like with K-State, that offense can slow down big time.
Yeah, that's true.
Offense isn't in gear. And, look at a team like UC Irvine. UC Irvine can score points. And if you're missing a link on offense, or if you're missing an important piece like K-State is, teams can take advantage of that. So, yeah, I get it with Wisconsin, and usually that's I already know they're going to be in the Sweet 16, but I don't know. The 2 or 3 times I've watched Wisconsin this year, four times, because I saw them play Michigan twice, and they actually won one of those Michigan games. But the game in Ann Arbor, offense just slowed down to a pulp, and if they're a solid team, I need some more consistency out of them.
No, I respect it. I can give you another team real quick. UCF scares me. How you feel about Houston is what UCF scares me. And I know that we potentially play them as Duke fans. We play them in the next round. Man, they scare the hell out of me. That kid, that big ass kid in the middle. They got some playmakers in the backcourt. That team scares me. They're athletic. They can hit shot. They can make big plays. UCF is, I don't think a lot of people are talking about UCF and they should be. UCF's a good team. I was impressed with them.
They're a good team, and they definitely score a lot of points, but I don't know if they can match for 40 minutes, if they can match Duke's quality. And plus, they like I said, I actually have UCF moving into the second round, but that first round matchup isn't easier for them.
Yeah, VCU is always tough. I don't know. It's just something about UCF that scares me. When I saw them, I was like, ooh, I think we'll win. But that's a game that I could see Duke struggling with. I could see that being like they struggle in the first half and then they just wear them down in the second half. But UCF is going to be tough. I think I was impressed when I saw them against Houston. And I really like that team a lot. Yeah, that's the one. That's the other team that I would say. Other teams that I would say that are getting too much love. I don't know why people love Virginia Tech so much. And I don't get it. Yeah, I don't. I'm taking my
Duke bias out of it.
I'm taking my Duke bias out of it too. I'm just like, Buzz is a good coach, but I don't. Virginia Tech, they never do anything in these tournaments.
Virginia Tech and NC State, the game in Raleigh. Mm-hmm. I watched part of that. That team. They struggle to score points sometimes.
Absolutely.
There will be nights where they wake up and it's like, oh hey, should we score under 60 points today? Sure.
Yeah. No, they're not a great offensive team, and they never do anything in these tournaments. And I know people hate when you bring that up, like, oh, it's a different team, and you can't. Yeah, sometimes that's it's a pattern. It's hard to grade these teams because it is one game. But I think you have to grade these teams on history. You got to grade these teams on what they've done over a period of time. And there's a reason why a lot of people feel like there's pressure on Bennett in Virginia because they have fallen apart in these tournaments. So I think you have to be fair when you're analyzing these teams. And Virginia Tech is one of those teams that I feel like every year people say like, oh, watch out for Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech has a chance, and then they fall flat.
Right, and see. State matchup is not good for them.
Yeah, Hallen knows his way. Hallen knows how to coach in the NCAA tournament. He knows how to. Yeah, that's not a great matchup for them either. Yeah, and I'm impressed with the SEC this year. I think the SEC quietly, low key, probably is tied with the Big Ten as far as being the second best conference in the nation. The SEC is always top heavy, so it's always hard because of course you have Tennessee, Kentucky, Auburn, and then you have like the Drex. But overall, I still think that's a quality league. It's been a better league this year than I've seen in the last couple years. So I have a lot of respect for Mississippi State and them being able to be a solid team in that conference. So yeah, I think that's a bad matchup for Virginia Tech.
Yeah, no, it's the SEC is. To me, they've been the second best conference.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. The reason I say they've been the second best conference is we know what the Big Ten does. We know how good the Big Ten is. But even though teams struggled in that middle part of the SEC, there was still some quality teams and really the contenders and the top teams got tested every week.
Yeah.
I mean, it was hard, for a team to really hit a groove and get after it. So.
Yeah. Well, let's get into these brackets, man. We'll do this a little. Yeah, let's do it. Let's. I'm gonna do is kind of rapid fire. So you give me your pick, I give you mine, and we'll just go with our picks, and hopefully we don't get slandered by Twitter for them.
Twitter has slandered me on my picks pretty much every year. So, yeah, you know what? Actually, I last year finished with, and this is according to ESPN, so I'm not making a number up. It's not fake news. I actually had a bracket score of 99.8, so...
All right. Well, was that like your first bracket, or was that like the fourth bracket?
Here's my thing. I only create one bracket.
Okay, cool.
Because the good Americans make one bracket.
Yeah, if I'm in a pool with people, like if it's like an open competition, I only do one. Like, of course, if I'm just for myself, like I always do like one where I think what's gonna happen, and then I do like a madness bracket where like I pick opposites of everything and things that I could conceivably see happening or whatever. So just for fun. But no, I think if you're competing, if you're like in a legit pool, especially if money is involved and stuff like that, we're not endorsing gambling, although it's legal now in a lot of states now. But yeah, but we're not endorsing if you don't want to. But yeah, no, it's be honest, do one bracket. Don't be having 3 freaking brackets out there, man. That's lame.
And then brag about how good you are.
Exactly, yeah, like the third bracket being like, I picked UMBC to go to a Final Four. Yeah, your third bracket, that shit don't count. But yeah, you know how I feel. But yeah, let's go rapid fire with these, man. We'll start with our beloved Duke in the East region. Obviously, I don't think we need to waste time. Duke over or NDS or NCC. Obviously, we're gonna go Duke, right?
Yep.
The 8-9 matchup, VCU UCF.
I'm going UCF.
I'm there with you as well. Mississippi State Liberty.
I'm going Mississippi State. Close one. 5's gonna get tested, but Mississippi State.
Yeah, I thought about going with Liberty on this one, but I'm gonna go with Mississippi State. I'm with you on that. Vatech or St. Louis?
Low scoring game, Vatech wins.
I got St. Louis. I think they're the third team.
So we finally differ.
Yeah, I'm going with St. Louis on that one. Maryland or obviously the Belmont Temple.
Belmont.
Belmont.
Without question, that's a team that other teams do not want to see.
I haven't seen a lot of them. I'll take your word for them.
But I'm going to lose because I've endorsed them.
Of course, right? Yeah. I should pick Maryland just because you said that now. You know what? I'm going to go. You know what? F it. I'm going to go with Belmont, right? Let's do it. LSU, Yale.
LSU, but close.
I'm going to go with Yale.
Okay.
Will Wade. They're going to be asking questions about that all week. Plus, I think Yale's really good. And Yale gives teams. Yeah, Yale's a good team. I think LSU's athleticism could give them some problems, but I think Yale can make, they got playmakers on the backcourt. I watched a lot of that Ivy League tournament. I liked what I saw from them. And they always play well in the NCAA tournament, at least the last a few years ago, that the last couple of years that they've been in, Yale's been pretty decent in the tournament. So I think they got a chance to upset LSU. I don't know where LSU's head is at right now, honestly, with that whole Will Wade situation. Louisville and Minnesota.
Yeah, I love how this game is the first game to kick off the tournament. I'm like, that's pretty petty.
I know, right? I know that is, dog. If you legitimately don't think that these dudes in the committee aren't thinking about stuff beyond just kind of, we're just picking a 68, all that, like, nah, I call BS on that one. Like, no doubt they were thinking about Patino versus Louisville.
I think Richard Pitino has. If they're going to be good, you got to give them maybe another year or so. I think they're going to be, Big Ten title contender worthy, but Louisville's got too many horses.
Yeah, Jordan Mora, I think takes over that game. I think he's going to be a little bit too much for them, so I go with Louisville. I agree with you, but I think it's going to be interesting, though. I could see Minnesota beating them. Mm-hmm. Michigan State, Bradley. Obviously, I'm going to go with Michigan State.
Sparty.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move over to the West. Gonzaga and the winner. Yeah, of course.
Why are we
Yeah. It's Gonzaga. Sometimes Gonzaga tends to mess around in these opening games, but I think Gonzaga wins. Syracuse or Baylor? I got Syracuse.
I'm going Syracuse. That zone, it's going to be a battle of zones. That game's going to be so unwatchable.
Yeah, and I hate Baylor in this tournament. I hate Baylor in these tournaments. Every year they just manage to freaking choke. I just never trust Baylor in these tournaments. So I don't care. I don't care. Baylor could literally be playing TCC, and I'm always going to find a way to pick any team against Baylor. I just never love Baylor in these tournaments. But yeah, so Syracuse, I think we're agree on that one. To me, the game that I'm looking forward to the most, Marcus Howard versus Ja Morant, Marquette, Murray State. This is probably the game of the tournament, at least in the early onset. Murray State, Marquette. This is the ultimate pick'em game to me. Who you got? I'm gonna see who you got. Who you got first?
Honestly, I got Marquette because I think Ja and I think they're going to cancel each other out.
Yeah.
I think they're going to have their own game. Marquette's got dudes. Marquette can play a physical style of ball and slow things down. So while Ja Morant is going to get his, I like Marquette moving on. It'll be a good game though. It'll be a fun game to watch. But yeah, give me Marquette in a close one. Might be game of the first round.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think so. Definitely. Oh man, this is tough, yo. This is really, really tough. My mind says Marquette. My heart says Murray State. I'm gonna go with Murray State. I think this is Ja Morant's stage to. Although I love Marcus Howard too, but I'm gonna go with Murray State. Why not?
How many dunks do you think Ja Morant's going to have? I got 3 monster dunks.
I can see 3 monster dunks. Definitely 3. Maybe 4 or 5. Yeah, I think he's going to want to put on a show. So I think, I think that's why they're so evenly matched. I'm going to go with Murray State. I'm going to stick by that one. Florida State or Vermont?
This is
I'm with your thing. I'm with you.
Tricky game on paper, but Florida State's just got too many damn athletes. I looked at Vermont; they aren't as big as they've been in the past. They have some length, but I don't know. This is the quintessential 13 over 4 that everybody would want to pick. Mm-hmm. Give me Florida State.
I'm gonna go with Vermont. I'm gonna call the upset. Yeah.
I've got Florida State going deep in this tournament, so the one time I do trust Florida State, they would probably vomit all over themselves.
Yeah, I don't trust Florida State. I love Leonard Hamilton, and I hate not trusting him year in and year out, but I've been disappointed by that team year in and year out. I've had years where I thought Florida State scared the hell out of me. They played Duke tough all year long. They played Carolina all year long, and then they freaking urinate on themselves in the tournament. I just got a funny feeling Vermont's going to beat them. I just got a funny feeling.
That's fair.
And if not Vermont, then I think either Marquette or Murray State beats them. I know everybody's down on Marquette because they finished the season so terribly, but I could definitely see Marquette beating them. And Murray State, I think they're going to carry the momentum from that early game to.
That would be a rock fight. A Marquette Florida State game would be a freaking rock fight.
Yeah. How about the next matchup? Buffalo versus the winner of St. John's and ASU.
Well, I've got St. John's beating ASU because I think ASU is absolutely awful and should be nowhere near the tournament.
I second that.
So
I second that.
I got Buffalo. Buffalo is I feel like they're a team that they're a great team in the wrong region.
Interesting.
Because I think if they were in the South or the Midwest, okay, I could see a deep run. But Buffalo, I think they get past this one and they'll move on to the second round.
Texas Tech, North Kentucky. I know I basically shat on all over Texas Tech. I think they get past North Kentucky though.
Yeah, I got Texas Tech over Northern Kentucky.
Nevada, Florida. This is an interesting one too.
Yep, Nevada just they were a top 5 team to start the season.
Mm-hmm.
And in the last month, they have absolutely defecated in the bed. I got Nevada still going through. I hate watching Nevada play at this point.
Yeah, I don't understand Nevada, man. I like their coach. Obviously, the Martin twins are great, but
Carolina solid.
Yeah. I don't know what's happened to them. I've been disappointed with them. I thought they'd be where Buffalo would be, just one of those teams from a mid-major that just dominates their season, and they had a chance to, and they just kind of completely fell apart. I don't know what happened to them. Hopefully, they can get it back in the tournament. I'm going to go with Nevada. I haven't seen enough of Florida to validate that they're going to beat Nevada. Michigan, Montana.
I'm going to go Michigan. I actually saw this when I was covering the NCAA tournament for the AP last year. I actually saw these two in a first-round game against each other. It was the last first-round game of the night, and that might have been the longest basketball game ever.
I remember that game too. I remember that. Yeah, I remember that last year. Yeah.
Because the scoreboard went out. Like something, I forgot what happened.
It was something weird. Yeah, it was something weird that happened.
Was there a shot clock or the scoreboard went out?
I think
that was like 5 minutes.
I think the shot clock, because I think they had to like go off of. I think like somebody had to go in with a timer basically, and I think that's what it was. I don't remember, but I remember this game being weird for some reason.
Yeah, and it was and they essentially had to wait till the media timeout.
Yeah.
Fix it. It was, and then Nevada, but Montana put Michigan in the I want to say double bonus with like 6 minutes left in the game, and when it happened, a collective groan over the entire arena because once again, it's the last game of the night.
Yeah, so everybody's ready to go home. Yeah,
right, and it was a Thursday, so I would say out of that arena, maybe 20% of the people had to or weren't working that next day.
Wow.
So, and if you were there, clearly you hadn't gone out drinking at the bars. So you're just like, oh, what the hell? And then we find out that after the game, that we were the first game of the day on Saturday. We're just like, what?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Games and it was not fun that night. So long story short, I have experience with the long and lengthy rivalry of Michigan and Montana, I'm taking Michigan.
A good pick. Good pick. I don't think Montana. Let's just hope they don't have a crazy game like they had last year for all the wrong reasons, of course.
Actually, no, I'm not going to be there this time, so yeah, they can do whatever.
Yeah, they can do whatever they want, right? Virginia, Gardner Webb. Gardner Webb, right? Can it happen 2 years in a row? Can it happen 2 years in a row? Go ahead now.
2 years in a row? No way. Even though it would be hilarious, and Virginia would have to take like a 4-year ban from the tournament. I'm going to go Virginia.
Yeah, no, Virginia. If there's one lock this entire weekend, even more so than like Duke versus, whatever, Virginia, they're going to win. They're going to treat that game like it's the freaking fucking Super Bowl. They're going to win that game. There's no doubt they're winning that game.
Here's where, no offense to Virginia, and I know these are college students and we want to talk about fair play and all that. Virginia, beat them by 50.
Yeah.
Leave no doubt.
Because if you go out there and you lose by 10, people are going to look at y'all like, come on, man. Come on.
If they win by inside, I think the number is 24, I want to say, for this game.
Probably.
It's 24. But if they're inside the number, I'd be so disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Virginia has to leave no doubt in this result. So, yeah, I got Virginia, too. Although I would love it to be Gardner Webb. Oh, God, I would love it. But nah, definitely Virginia. Ole Miss, Oklahoma. This is an interesting one. I feel like two Drecks.
Oklahoma didn't even make it towards the finish. Give me Ole Miss.
It's a pick 'em for all the wrong reasons. Ugh. I don't like this game. I don't know why I don't like this game, but I just don't like this game. If I had to pick one, I've bashed them, so I guess I'll go with... No, you know what? Nah, forget that. I'm going to go with Ole Miss.
Attaboy.
I'm going to go with Ole Miss. Why not? Wisconsin, Oregon. I think I know where you're heading.
I'm going to go with Wisconsin.
Oh, okay. Surprised me. I thought you were going to go with Oregon. I thought you were going to go with Oregon for a second. Yeah, I got Wisconsin. I think this might be probably the second best game of that early, the early round. I think these two teams are evenly matched. I can see this being an entertaining game. I just think Wisconsin has a little bit more experience than Oregon. That'll show. But I wouldn't be surprised if Oregon. I think it's a pick'em game. Obviously, the 5-12 matchups always are. So yeah, I would say Wisconsin. Kansas State and UC Irvine.
UC Irvine.
I knew you were going there.
Ooh. Another good man from the state of Kansas. Oh dear.
Man, I hope they're not listening. State of Kansas, don't listen to any game. I mean, I appreciate you listening, but I'm just saying, don't just mute this part.
I'm sure they're going to listen. Good for them.
Man, I'm gonna go with Kansas State. I'm not gonna. Although everybody keeps saying, you know what? I hate sometimes picking these mid majors that I haven't seen, and everybody tells me pick them because they always disappoint me. Like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna pick UC Irvine, and then like UC Irvine gets blown out, and then I'm like, really? This is what everybody was making a big hype about? So, I'm gonna go with Kansas State.
Kansas State. That's nothing wrong with that.
I'm assuming Dean Wade is healthy. I'm assuming.
Okay, that works.
If he's not, then God help us. But Villanova, St. Mary's.
Close one. This also might be another one of those games that we look back on when the tournament's over. But I got Villanova.
I got St. Mary's.
Ooh,
I got St. Mary's. I'm not high on Villanova, even though I gave them respect and I said they should have been seated higher. I'm just not there with Villanova this year. I just haven't been impressed. I watched them a few times. Even in the Big East tournament, I was just like, I was more impressed actually with Seton Hall than I was with Villanova. I respect Villanova. I respect Jay Wright, but not this year. I could see St. Mary's knocking them off.
Okay.
Purdue, Old Dominion.
I feel like this is one of those where everybody wants to pick Old Dominion, but no, Purdue's got dudes.
Yeah, that's another team that I feel like everybody's for a decade plus have been telling me that Matt Painter is this big time coach, and I'm just waiting. And every year I'm just like, okay, like get to an Elite Eight, get to a Final Four, and yeah.
He held the coaching job this year, though.
He did. I mean, they lost a lot of guys from last year's team. I think because I picked them so far. I picked them so far last year and they disappointed me, so I'm still holding some bitterness towards that. So, you know what? And I think Old DU is a dangerous team, so I'm gonna go with Old Dominion. I'm gonna be one of those folks that is gonna pick Old Dominion.
That's fair. That works.
You can criticize me on my picks, man. I'm not gonna
criticize you on picks. With some of the picks I've made, I'm not going to criticize anybody, but if you make a pick and we see it ends up wrong, then I will criticize you.
Amen.
I'm not going to do any preemptive criticizing.
Amen. I'm good. I can take it. Cincinnati, Iowa. I don't like this game.
Cincinnati's going to do unforgivable and rude things to Iowa.
Really? I hate this game too. This is another Ole Miss Oklahoma game. I don't want to watch this game.
I'm gonna hate watch this thing because I just want to see Cincinnati just absolutely eviscerate Iowa off the face of the earth, and I think it's gonna be hilarious. But
I wonder why. You don't like their head coach?
Oh no, Fran's a dick.
Yeah. He's not exactly a great guy. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm with Cincinnati. I'm with Cincinnati too, man. I'm with Cincinnati. Yeah. Although I hate this matchup and I hate watching. Cincinnati's one of those teams that puts me to sleep. So yeah, I don't love it, but I'm gonna go with Cincinnati. Tennessee, Colgate. I don't think we need to mess around, right?
Hey, you know what? Hey, Tennessee's got battle toothpaste. Nothing wrong with that. For a state that may struggle in the dental area, this is fitting. But I'm gonna go Tennessee.
Oh man, North Carolina, Iowa. We move into the Midwest region. Those hated Tar Heels.
I'm gonna go Carolina.
Yeah, of course. Iona. I always feel like Iona should win more. I'm surprised Iona hasn't been a Cinderella before. Like, I always feel like they've had years where they should have been, and they just never quite do it.
And I love their gimmick. It is, we're going to score 100-something points a game, but we can't play a lick of defense.
No.
Absolutely awful.
No. They don't even try to play defense. That's the way. Like, I love their gimmick too. Like, I love it. I love the way, especially a team like that. Like, you have to have a gimmick, but they don't even make an effort. I mean, they make Mike D'Antoni proud defensively.
They really do.
Yeah. Utah State, Washington. We haven't talked too much about the local UW. How do you view UW?
A lot of good parts, not a lot of great parts.
Yeah. I think they're a year early. I think they picked it. I think they're one of those. I think they're the prototypical team that kind of peaked too early this year. I think they were a team that I think a lot of people expected them next year to take that next step, and they took it a year early. So I think at the end of the season and what happened at the end of the season, I think it's starting to show. So I'm going to go with Utah State.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Auburn, New Mexico State. This is an interesting one.
Calling this a sleeper pick for New Mexico State. I'm going Auburn.
Yeah, I'm going Auburn too. I agree. Kansas, Northeastern. Now, mind you, I am a Northeastern alum, so I'm rooting for the Wolf Pack, and I am going to go with an upset. I'm going to go with Northeastern over Kansas.
I think Kansas wins, but I think Kansas struggles in this game. So I think it'll be Kansas. I don't know what the number is, but
yeah, I haven't checked the spread on any of these.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to be inside the number of what it is.
Yeah, I like Northeastern. I'm not even going to sit here in front and say that I've watched a lot of them play, obviously. But, I saw a little bit of their conference tournament. They can score. They have that European kid that can shoot. I think they can give Kansas some trouble. Again, if Kansas wins by a blowout, I wouldn't be surprised. Well, I'd be a little surprised if they win by a blowout, but, if Kansas wins, I'm not totally surprised, but I don't know. I'm just got, this is definitely my heart pick with this one, obviously.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I got Kansas winning, so, yeah.
Iowa State, Ohio State.
Ooh, this is a sleeper game of the day. Because Ohio State has a few dudes who can ball. Iowa State's got some dudes that can ball. But I think Iowa State, over a 40-minute span, is more consistent. So I would go Iowa State, but this is one that you'd want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I agree. I go with Iowa State, though, too. Yeah, I think Iowa State's a little bit more consistent. I think they're a little bit of a better team. Ohio State, every time I watch them, that's another weird team. It's like the times I've watched them, they either look really good or they've looked terrible. So it's hard to get a read on them. Houston, Georgia State.
This is going to be a fun game.
Yeah, I love Georgia State's coach. Why not, right?
Yeah, Ron Hunt, but I'm going to go Houston.
Yeah, Houston. Smart money would be Houston. This is an interesting one. Wofford, Seton Hall.
I am going against America. I'm going to go Seton Hall.
I agree. I think everybody wants to pick Wofford, so yeah.
If you can defend and you got guys who can score inside, you automatically give yourself a chance, especially this early on in the tournament.
Yeah, I agree. Seton Hall sometimes worries me, and a lot of those Big East teams worry me sometimes because I feel like they go through an entire season. Although the Big East is not obviously the Big East of old, obviously, but I still feel like the Big East is one of those teams where teams just destroy each other for 4 or 5 months, and then I feel like they have nothing left when they get into the tournament. So Seton Hall, for that reason, always kind of concerns me when they get into these tournament games. But I'm going to go with Seton Hall. And then, of course, Kentucky, Abilene Christian. I don't think we need to mess around. I think we know Kentucky's going to win that one, right?
Yep.
All right, rapid fire through the round of 32. Duke, UCF. I already told you UCF scares the hell out of me, but I'm going to go with Duke anyway because, of course, we love Duke.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one, but Duke.
Mississippi State, St. Louis.
What you got?
St. Louis.
Wow.
Yeah.
St. Louis making the Sweet 16. And mine, I've got Mississippi State Tech. I got Mississippi State going through. I think defensively, Mississippi State is going to get just enough stops.
Yeah, I just totally went pick 'em on that one, so I just went St. Louis. That's one of my. I think I'm gonna have 2 Cinderellas this year, and that's one of them. So I'm gonna go with St. Louis. Yale versus Belmont. I got Yale.
Wow, the Yale is headed to the Sweet 16.
Why not, right?
Wow. Hey, nothing wrong with that. I got Belmont. I had Belmont beating LSU, mainly because Will Wade is not there. And after a while, your head coach not being there will come back to haunt you.
Of course.
So, yeah, and I got Belmont, and I think LSU just wants to get this season over with.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're just ready to get the hell out of Dodge, for real. Louisville, Michigan State. I think this is going to be an interesting game. I think this is a fun. It's weird because I feel like Louisville always finds ways to lose games.
Yeah.
So, I can see this being a tougher game than people give it credit for, but I still think Michigan State pulls it out.
I think it's going to be kind of the theme of Louisville's season. Louisville will get to lead somewhere in the second half, and they blow it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, man. Let's move over to the West. Gonzaga, Syracuse.
Ugly game, but Gonzaga's got enough consistent offense.
I got Gonzaga in a close game. I think Cuse is going to give them some problems. I think Cuse, Boeheim's one of the GOATs in this tournament, so he's always going to figure out a scheme to try to. I think that's a closer game than I think people are going to give it credit for. Yeah, but I think Gonzaga just has too much offensive firepower. Hachimura will be a matchup problem for them, especially if they put him in the middle of that zone. He's going to make plays. I just think Gonzaga's going to find a way. Murray State, Vermont.
Murray State, Vermont. I know for mine, I've got Marquette, FSU. Ugly game. Going to be a fun game, though. I got FSU.
I'm going to go with... I'm going to just keep riding the Ja Morant train. I'm going to go with Murray State.
Okay. So, Ja Morant, Sweet 16.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, let's do it. Buffalo, Texas Tech. I know you're high on Texas Tech.
Yeah, Texas Tech. This is essentially going to be the Spider-Man meme, the twin Spider-Man meme. Yeah, let me go Texas Tech. I think they have a little more. I think Jarrett Culver is going to be the difference in that one for Tech. So, yeah, Tech to the Sweet 16.
I got Buffalo. Buffalo.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that.
I got Buffalo on that one. Nevada, Michigan. I'm going to go with Nevada. How you like that?
You know, I've been seeing that pick around, and I'm not hating it. I'm going to ride with my strong Michigan Suns into the Sweet 16 one more time. So, yeah, I'm going to go Michigan.
Which goes against everything that I talked about at the beginning, obviously, because I love Beeline, but I don't know. I think Nevada's going to play better than, I think everybody's counting on Nevada to continue this terrible streak they've been on. And I think Nevada's going to I almost kind of feel like Nevada got bored at the end of the year. Like, I think they kind of felt like they were just like that much better than every. Yeah, I think they're going to turn it up in the tournament. I really do. Now watch them lose in the first week, but in the first game.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, right. And then we move over to the South, Virginia, Ole Miss. Virginia, right?
Virginia. I honestly, I think Virginia may struggle out of the gate, but they'll get together. They beat Ole Miss.
Yeah, I think Virginia. I don't even think they struggle. I think Virginia. Wisconsin, Kansas State.
I've got Wisconsin losing to UC Irvine.
That's right. You picked UC Irvine, yeah.
UC Irvine headed to the Sweet 16.
Interesting.
Weird.
I got Wisconsin. No, I got Kansas State on mine. Again, I'm assuming D Wade is healthy. So I got Kansas State advancing to the Sweet 16 for the second year in a row. St. Mary's, Old Dominion. And you picked.
I had Villanova, Purdue. I got Villanova. I think that tournament experience, Phil Booth, is going to be a hell of a factor. Give me the Wildcats.
Alrighty, I got ODU going to the Sweet 16.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm. Hey, man, if we're gonna go hard or go home, right?
Hey, I respect it.
Next matchup, Cincinnati, Tennessee. Oh my God, this is gonna be a snorefest, but I got Tennessee.
Yeah, I got Tennessee. This is going to be old school Eastern Conference basketball from the 90s. There may be a fight. So yeah, I got Tennessee.
Yeah. And then of course we move to the Midwest, North Carolina, Utah State. The dreaded Tar Heels advance.
Yes.
Auburn, Northeastern. Or you had
Auburn, KU. I've got Auburn moving on.
Really? I got Auburn too. Iowa State, Houston. Who you got?
That'll be a fun game. I've got Houston. I think they're a little more athletic and a little more consistent offensively, so I'm going to go Houston.
Yeah, I got Houston too. I think Iowa State, although I think that's going to be a fun game too, though. But I think Houston advances. And then Seton Hall, Kentucky, a rematch of that great game earlier in the year at MSG. Who you got in that game?
I've got Kentucky. I think they've got it together at this point, and I think Kentucky moves on.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kentucky. It's hard to beat Kentucky. For Seton Hall, it's hard to beat them two times in the same year. So I think it'll be a close game. I think Seton Hall will play them tough, but I think Kentucky pulls it out. Alrighty. Think that's everything, and then I think we can advance to the Sweet 16. So, Duke, St. Louis. I think you had Duke and
Duke, Mississippi State.
Obviously Duke, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I got Duke too. I had Yale versus Michigan State. I'm gonna go with Michigan State, of course.
Yep, I got Belmont, Michigan State, and Sparty moves on.
I got the Zags and Murray State. Unfortunately, John Morant's tournament run and college career comes to an end against Gonzaga.
You know, I've got Gonzaga, Florida State. I saw this game once last year. Basically, the same two teams on the floor.
Yeah.
I gotta go Florida State.
Really? Second year in a row, huh?
Yeah. There's something about Gonzaga against a team like Florida State that they struggle with. If Florida State can get up and running,
yeah,
it's gonna be hard to stop them. And I think Hachimura, if Hachimura becomes more of a factor this game, then I think it could be a closer game. But I think Florida State, they know how to move the ball. And I like Florida State winning.
Interesting.
Plus, Mark Fewell's a dick. I'm gonna go on record.
Tell him how you feel, man. Tell him how you feel. I just get mad every time he talks and his teeth look the way they look. I'm just like, Jesus Christ.
See, I'm not gonna criticize a man's teeth, but
I am.
Everything that I've been told by everybody that had to interview Mark Few. Yeah, Mark Few is a dick.
He just looks like it. He just looks like the type. I just get annoyed every time he opens his mouth. Like, dude, I know you're making in the millions. Like, dog, come on. The dental plan has to be better. Dental has.
See, I'm not gonna judge him in teeth, but
that's the only thing I can judge him on, man. That's the only thing I can judge him on, man. I haven't dealt with him, but he looks. I'll agree with you. He does look like a dick, but. Yeah, let's go with that. I got Buffalo and Nevada. Man, Buffalo, Nevada. That's a fun matchup if we get it. Buffalo.
Wow, Buffalo playing.
Yeah, Buffalo playing Gonzaga.
That would be fun. I've got Texas Tech and Michigan. And my strong Michigan Suns. You've seen Infinity War, right?
Of course.
You know that scene where Thanos throws Gamora off the
for the Soul Stone, yeah.
This is that moment for me. What did it cost? Everything. So I'm throwing Michigan over the cliff. Texas Tech. Let's ride.
Interesting. Alrighty. Let's move into the South. We've got Virginia and Kansas State for me. I got Virginia.
Yep, I've got Virginia, UC Irvine. I've got Virginia. I almost said UC.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, he's gonna go there, really? Wow.
No, hey, I'm all about getting weird in the brackets, but not that weird.
I got ODU and Tennessee. This is where ODU's run comes to an end. Tennessee.
All right, Midwest region.
You cut out. I didn't hear your final pick on the South region.
I've got Villanova. They are going down. We will have a new champion this year. Tennessee wins. In a close one.
All right. Midwest region, UNC and Auburn. Who you got?
UNC.
Oh, man.
It hurts, doesn't it?
Damn it. Yeah, North Carolina. Yeah, I had to think about it for a second, but I was like, yeah, North Carolina. And then, of course, Houston and Kentucky I have. And I've got Houston in an upset. Yeah, I got Houston upsetting Kentucky. How about you?
I Kentucky. I think it's going to be a close game, but I've got Kentucky winning. I think Reed Travis inside, he's going to be the difference.
I just could see Houston making that a crusade game to beat Kentucky. I think those guys with the swagger they play with, yeah. I got Houston advancing to an Elite Eight. So let's pick it up. Duke, Michigan State, the matchup that I think everybody foresees happening. Duke, Michigan State. I got the Dukies, of course.
I've got Duke, and here's what I'll say. It'll be like the contribution. I don't know if you remember the regional final they had against Gonzaga back in 2015. Yeah. Where Matt Jones just kind of came out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And we're just like, what the hell?
Yeah, that was the Matt Jones game.
Where the hell has this been for
4 years?
A decade? Because it felt like he was there.
Yeah, he was at Duke. Yeah, he was at Duke for like 7 years, right? He had like 8 red shirts. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I think we're going to see Antonio
Brankovic.
I feel like I feel like it's going to be one of those games where either he or Jack White is finally going to get out of that slump, and we're like, oh, okay.
Or Goldwire. I can see Goldwire.
Goldwire having a good game.
Yeah.
So I mean, like it's gonna be one of those guys that steps up for sure.
Gonzaga and Buffalo for me. I have got the Zags in a close game. I think Buffalo's season ends.
I've got FSU, Texas Tech. You know what? Let's get weird. Texas Tech is going to a regional final.
Wow, you're going there? Wow.
They're going to a Final Four. And I look at it this way. In the last maybe 3 or 4 years, we've seen a team get to a regional final, and then that next year they have their breakthrough. Oregon comes to mind. I know a few other teams have kind of had that moment. And I think for this Texas Tech team, this is going to be one of those moments. I think Chris Beard is really going to be. He may be like a household name now, but I think he's going to be one of those. He's going to be that next guy on the scene. And what he's doing in Lubbock is special, and I think it all caps off with an appearance in their first ever Final Four.
Interesting. Wow, you going there? You going on a limb, man? Good shit. Good job, man. Virginia and Tennessee. This is going to be a good game. This is really going to be a good game. I got Tennessee beating Virginia.
Same. I think the fact that Tennessee has a few more athletes than Virginia.
Yeah.
And, I mean, hell, it might be the first team to 70 wins.
Yeah. I think I think that low key might be a game of the tournament as well. Yeah. I think that's a good game. It's a good matchup. I just think Grant Williams is going to be too much for Virginia.
Agreed. I think that matchup inside is going to be fun, and yeah, I got Tennessee.
UNC versus Houston.
For you, that would be a good. That is a good regional.
Man. I got UNC.
Okay. I got UNC, Kentucky. This game I was kind of debating on when I was actually headed home from work today. I want to say Kentucky, or I want to say North Carolina, but there's something about this Kentucky team that I think, and honestly, I think it's going to be a majority Kentucky fans in the arena. Give me Kentucky in another classic Sunday afternoon
with North Carolina. Okay. Yeah, no, I definitely could see it. All right. Well, my Final Four is Duke, Gonzaga, Tennessee, UNC, and yours is Duke,
Texas Tech, Tennessee, and Kentucky.
Wow. Who would have thought that, huh? Okay. Well, I'll let you scroll through your Final Four.
first matchup, I have Duke taking out Texas Tech. I know they played a close game earlier in the season. I don't think this thing will be as close as it was then. Give me Duke over Kentucky, over Texas Tech, and then in the second game, and I forgot, and I don't know when's the last time a Final Four game went to overtime, but I think we're going to get an overtime.
Interesting.
I think we are going to get an overtime in the Final Four. I'm actually going to look that up. So yeah. Let's see. Yes, we're because I need to find out when the last overtime in the Final Four was.
Wasn't it that Wisconsin Kentucky game?
Oh, was that the one in 2014?
Yeah, I believe so. Was it not?
Yeah. I think so.
I think it was. I think it wasn't it the twins, the twin guards or whatever. One of yeah.
Final Four. Yeah, no. I think so. But yeah, no, we haven't had one, and they're rare, but they're good. Let me see. That was not in overtime, actually.
I don't know why I thought that game was an overtime game.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, for some reason I kept thinking it was an overtime game too, but no, it was not an overtime game. Huh. That could be a nice little trivia question.
Yeah, that's a trivia question for somebody out there. Yeah, what was the last Final Four game to end in overtime?
I think I'm going to ask that question on Twitter now.
Go ahead.
Honestly, I don't know. What's your Final Four?
So my Final Four, I'm going to go with, so obviously my Final Four is Duke, Gonzaga, Tennessee, North Carolina. So 3 number ones and a number 2. I think it's a pretty good Final Four. I think North Carolina, Tennessee will be the first game. I think that has a chance to be a good game, but I just think I think that's a physical game between Tennessee and North Carolina. I just think Tennessee, Tennessee over North Carolina. I just think Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield are going to be too much for North Carolina inside. I think they can get those bigs from North Carolina in trouble. I think the point guard for Tennessee can lock down Kobe White, or at least make Kobe White be turnover prone. So I got Tennessee over North Carolina. And then, of course, I got the game of the tournament, the rematch, Duke versus Gonzaga. I think this is a hell of a game. You know, the game in Maui was a hell of a game. This will be another hell of a game. I mean, this has Duke. This has Kentucky, Wisconsin from a few years ago, like we were talking about. This has that type of game written all over it. Emotional, back and forth, big time plays. I think Duke gets the revenge. I think every Duke fans wanted to see Gonzaga again because that was the one team that beat us at full strength all year. I think Duke wins that in a close, classic game. I think it's Duke over Gonzaga. And then my national championship game is Duke versus Tennessee. Very popular pick. I thought about going Duke UNC in the national championship game for the first time ever.
The entire state of North Carolina might just absolutely melt down.
You know what? Out of all the years, I think this might be the year we might get it, but I'm not going to make that pick. So, Duke, Tennessee, I got our beloved Blue Devils. Cutting down the 6th championship trophy for Coach K. And Duke is your national championships as they defeat Tennessee. Good game. I'm interested to see that matchup of Grant Williams and Schofield versus Zion in the post. That's a boxing match. That's a heavyweight championship fight. But I think Duke just has a little bit more playmakers. And the one thing that would concern me with Tennessee sometimes struggles. They go through droughts where they're not great offensively. And if Grant Williams doesn't make a big play or Schofield doesn't make a big three, they they tend to go into kind of these droughts. So that's the one thing that would worry me. Obviously, we all know Duke's weakness is 3-point shooting, so that can come back to bite them. But I just think Duke is the best team in the country. They've been the best team in the country all year, and I think they prove it in a national championship game against Tennessee.
Okay, my team is Duke, Kentucky. Two blue blood programs. It's been a while since we've had one of these. Coach K has been to the Final Four is in Dallas, or not Dallas,
Minneapolis.
Final Four is in Minneapolis. Coach K has never left Minneapolis without a national championship. Make it 3 for 3. Duke 78-73 over Kentucky. Your most outstanding player of the Final Four is R.J. Barrett.
Ah, no Zion, huh? Okay, cool. Nice.
I think we all know about Zion at this point. I think R.J. Barrett's going to have one hell of a tournament.
Ah, interesting. No, I can see that. Yeah, if I had to give you a score, I could see 76-68 for Duke over Tennessee in my pick. Outstanding tournament player. I know you're saying RJ. I think for Duke to win a national championship, I think the X factor for us is either going to be Cam Reddish or Trey Jones. I got Trey Jones following in the footsteps of his big brother. I think Trey Jones wins most outstanding player in the Final Four.
I can see that, and that would be pretty amazing to see. Because the thing is, Trey Jones has had some moments.
He's amazing defensively. Oh my God, he's locked down defensively.
Yeah, the offense is starting to come around though, which is encouraging.
Yeah. Do you think he comes out? Do you think he's a one and done guy, or do you see him?
This draft is weird because I feel like there's maybe a solid 8 to 10 guys that we know we're gonna go lottery, but after that, it's a
crapshoot. Yeah.
Oh God, it's so bad.
Yeah, I actually think Trey stays. For another year. I think he could. I think he benefits from staying one more year. I think playing with Vernon Carey next year is going to only help his stock. I think improving on that 3-pointer will definitely add to him. I just more selfishly, of course, me talking. I want him to stay, but I can see him staying another year.
Yeah, I can see him staying another year, and if he has a good tournament where he is, most outstanding.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Yeah, I can see him coming out. I can see him. Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. I
can see something happen like that, but doing it cold like that, probably not.
Alrighty, so we both got Duke. You got Duke over Kentucky. I've got Duke over Tennessee. A Duke versus an SEC team. I think I like our picks, man. I think we.
I like our picks too. I am honestly a bit nervous because I feel like it's going to end up completely wrong.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't think it's going to end up completely wrong. I know it's going to end up completely wrong.
Yeah, you're right,
I'm just trying to figure out.
You're right. I'm gonna
when and where it's going to end up wrong.
I'm gonna tell you, I love these picks all the way up to 11:59 local time Thursday morning, and then when the games start, I'm gonna hate these picks because I'm pretty sure within the first 2 hours the brackets are gonna be busted as usual, right?
Yeah, I'm just glad that they don't count the playing game against
Yeah, I never count the playing. Yeah, I never count the playing games. To me, to me, the tournament starts. I'm one of those old fogies, even though I'm not that old. I'm one of those old fogies. The tournament starts on Thursday in the afternoon. That's me. That's when the tournament starts. I know technically speaking, the playing games are a part of the tournament. They're technically round one. Nah, round one begins Thursday.
As much as I'm a traditionalist for the, for the tournament, there's one thing that I will keep, that I wish that we could keep. I want to keep the tournament on CBS exclusively. I don't mind watching it on different channels, but there is something cool about not knowing what's going on in other places or knowing what's going on in other places, and instantly you're going to be taken there, with there's like 2 minutes left. You're like, oh man, could we see an upset? And it's like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then it's kind of like, oh, all right, well, turn it to True TV. This game's over. This game sucks.
No, I actually like that. I hated it for years, because it always felt like CBS had the crappy games and then you couldn't watch the actual good ones. So you're just sitting there like, damn it, get this crap off my fucking TV. Like, I want to watch the good game. So it always felt like you never could watch the really good games. But I like the new setup. I just hate that they use some of the NBA guys. Like I love Chuck, but Chuck doesn't watch college basketball. Like, come on, like, stop. Like, he's not.
He's done better though. I won't give him.
He's gotten better from the start. He's gotten better. Yeah, you're right. He's gotten better, and I think all those guys as a whole have gotten better in their coverage. I think they actually make it an effort to at least keep up with the game. As I think the first 3 or 4 years they really struggled, where you just could tell that they didn't watch any college basketball. So I think they've gotten better. I can watch Kenny Smith analyze Little League basketball. So I think Kenny Smith at least has a general idea of what's going on. But everybody, I've always been a person that I want to see ESPN carry the tournament, because I think ESPN has the best stable. No, just because I love Jay Billis. I love Dan Schulman calling the games. I love, obviously, Dickie V is an institution in college basketball. I know some people love him, hate him, but Dickie V not calling college basketball games in the tournament is a crime in my opinion. I wouldn't mind seeing at least the earlier rounds on ESPN, and then the Elite Eight and Final Four and championship game on CBS. But I'm good with the setup. I just wish that, or I would be, instead of getting the NBA guys to host throughout the tournament, why not slide a couple 100,000 or 1 million or so to ESPN and let them use their guys? I don't know. It's wishful thinking.
That wouldn't be bad.
Wishful thinking. It's never going to happen. That's the one thing I hate about the new setup, is that I love the new setup overall, because I think it gives you more access to more games, obviously. But just listening to the terrible NBA guys calling college basketball when they don't know anything about the game. So it just annoys me.
I gotcha.
Well, man, this has been a blast. Never had this much fun previewing the tournament, so credit to you, sir. We'll definitely have to do this again. Before you go, man, go ahead and plug your social media. Let everybody know where they can find you, and preview some work you got coming up on the Tribune.
All right, so you can hit me up on Twitter at AhamTNT. Aham, that's 2 M's. TNT, and I've got a few features coming up. Going to be talking some soccer, and I'm still going to be doing some tournament stuff.
Awesome, man. Andrew, man, it's been a blast. Like I said, I've had a blast doing this show with you, and we will definitely get you on the podcast again. Hopefully, talking something else other than our bad college picks.
No problem, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yo, what's up, everybody? If you're a real fan of Any Given Sunday, then you have to become a member of our exclusive Facebook page, AGS Nation. AGS Nation is a special Facebook group page where real fans of the podcast can connect with me and other hardcore sports fans. Now, I must warn you, anything goes on this page. Guys post the funniest, most thought-provoking, and sometimes even offensive posts, memes in the sports universe. So if you're a little bit of weak at heart, do not join this page. But if you're a real hardcore fan of the show, join me, connect with me directly on AGS Nation. Don't hesitate, but beware, it goes down in AGS Nation. Peace out. Many thanks to Andrew for joining me this week on the podcast. Please make sure you follow him on Twitter at AhamTNT, and also check him out on the Tribune if you're in the Tacoma area or in the Puget Sound area, man. He's a pretty dope writer. I actually just started following him a couple weeks ago because I read some of his stories in the lead up to the tournament, and I found him really interesting. So, really good guy, local. And I love his insight on college basketball. He also writes about a lot of different things. So I love his insight. So, he's a really good follow on Twitter. So yeah, check him out. At AHAMTNT. Well, anyway, that's it for me. I'm done for the night. I'm done. It's been a long show and I'm kind of tired. And I am also playing mom and dad this week. So as you can imagine, that is a hard job. But nah, man, as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for checking out the podcast. I say this every week. Without you guys, the listeners, there is no show. So thank you for supporting and listening to the show as much as you guys do. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at @DManuelBrown, on Instagram at @DManuelBrown, on Facebook Manuel Brown, and of course on Snapchat MannyBro15. Also, you can follow the show on Twitter at AGS Pod, on Instagram at AGS Podcast, Facebook Any Given Sunday. Make sure you become part of the Any Given Sundays Facebook group page, AGS Nation. So yeah, man, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. We'll be back next week with another episode of the podcast. Please have a happy, safe, blessed rest of your week. If you're in my area, enjoy the weather. If you're in other parts of the country, keep braving through the weather. Yeah, just have a happy, safe, blessed week, man. We'll catch y'all next week on the podcast. All right. Peace. Serious sound.